Hey, friend. So I sent you the essay for the secondary response to the fire and the flood passages, the paired passages that were in response to an informative genre to basically they were like literary nonfiction things that really happened uh, in the past decade. What I want to do is three things with this video. I'm going to go over the essay with you sentence by sentence, but I want to show you how the quality of the essay and the quantity are both equally important when it comes to helping you decide what score an essay should get. And by that I mean that we've seen some essays, secondary and elementary, that might have just one basic thesis or controlling idea, central idea, and a couple of pieces of evidence, and maybe just one or two sentences of explaining each with a solid ending, and they still get an 8, 9, or a 10 when it comes to both graders, while others might have a lot of sentences of explanation. So what I want to try to show you in this video with the essay that I wrote for you based on evidence that we've already gone over is that it's a combination of quality and quantity when it comes to analyzing an essay. And so there's three things that I want to do. Number one, as I'm reading the essay, I'm going to use the hand graphic organizer that's in your handout uh, that has the introduction here inside the palm with the hook and the idea based on evidence from the text. And what I'm going to do is use M&Ms to count the quantity of sentences for each part, for the introduction, for the body, where we have evidence that's explained and exploded. Because when you can do those three things in the body, then you can have the best chance of getting a 4. But we also have to remember that the introduction, what's going to be our thumb today, and our conclusion also have to have the qualifications of being effective, both the beginning and the ending. So even though sometimes essays don't have an effective intro or closing because of some strengths in other areas, think of it kind of like a balancing act. The next way I'm going to show you how to analyze the essay is to use the paper potato head, and I'm going to be sending you in this video, with this video, I'm going to be attaching the paper potato head where you're able to count the quantity of details, and we're going to be using the potato head to check the quality at the same time. Then, based on the number of each kinds of details, we're going to talk about this. Okay. This is a Mr. Potato Head, and he has a hat. So remember that we have to make sure we respond to the T, the topic, with either one idea if it requires that, or two ideas if we write vertically from top to bottom, then your hair or your hat will represent your hook. And so I'm going to lean over here to my left for just a second and get Mrs. Potato Head's hair. There it is. Ah, sorry about that. So for an essay to have quality and be effective, I want to make sure that I show you the different ways. In the last video, I went over several different hooks, attention getter leads that you can use to start the essay, but we're going to see in the essay that any hooks, attention getters, toes, ideas that I didn't use in the introduction or in the ending or in the conclusion, we sprinkle them throughout the body. Now, each hand, arm is going to be a piece of evidence that we might use. So people will say, Bill, how many pieces of evidence should you use? Well, depending on the ability of the student, you would use one or two or three. It's just that the more pieces of evidence you use, the harder it is to do something else that starts with a T, to transition, to connect them all and make them all be related and relevant to the topic, to the ideas that you use, and hopefully even to the hook. Now, you do see that there's eyes, a nose, a mouth, ears. Every time that the senses are used, you could plug in an eye, an ear, a nose, a mouth, etc. So what you would make the essay do is show the visual part of that by plugging in eyes if you get to see something, ears if you hear something, uh, fingers if you want to touch something. But remember that the hands are also representing pieces of evidence. Got a fly that's bugging me here. And for each finger, how many sentences did you spend explaining if we use this? And I have the back of him or her open so that we can count the quality, the quantity, and the quality of details, not just sentences, but details. And so your voice is not who you are on the outside, your voice is who you are on the inside. And so let me share with you that the fourth bullet, 4, mentions your word choices being very precise and very specific. So higher vocabulary is one way to do that, but voice, who the characters are on the inside, or who we are as we're describing the explanation, is going to be this. What are my thoughts and opinions about what's going on? What are my feelings and my emotions? And so different colors uh, of poker chips are going to represent that. So because every child has pure, clean thoughts, if we find a thought that we can qualify as a thought detail, we'll put a white chip inside the opening so it goes inside. Uh, in my opinion, opinions are uh, blue is my favorite color. So every time we find an opinion that's written, we will place a blue chip inside. Thoughts, opinions, emotions are red. So we can either tell our emotions or show our emotions by our actions, etc. There's also uh, truisms, and you're going to see this on the paper potato head. Truisms, quotes, words of wisdom. If we find any of those, we'll place a green chip inside, one for each one. Uh, there's lots of opportunities just for basic higher vocabulary when you remove a lower word and put a higher one. That is improving the quality of the content. And so you would want to make sure that the students get rewarded for this. Now, if you're not doing it for a potato head, but you have some sort of a store, I used to have a store where the students would get poker chips and they would keep them on top of their desk so that as they did things, they would get more chips for that period. And uh, at the end, they would put them in a special storage area. And then usually once a week or once every couple of weeks, at the most once a month, I would have a store and they would be able to bring their poker chips, their tokens to my store. And it was usually while the students were writing an essay because that was normally when um, there was the most time, basically. The last one, black, is going, and I'm going to mention these as we're reading the essay the first time, but we're only going to be um, counting these details when we use the paper potato head, and then based on how many I counted, I will place that many of each color inside. And there's not an exact number, but figurative language, similes, metaphors, onomatopoeias, idioms, personifications, any type of special figurative language, not literal language that we use. So I do have their little friends right here. And remember that when you write an essay, sometimes the topic only needs, like a pirate here, one idea. So in your reading and writing guide, there is a page where there's a pirate like this where he has a hand with a hook and he has his one eye and there's a T here and there's an I here. And the cool thing about the skull and crossbones is that it looks like an X. So we're going to be doing expository, or we're going to at least explain and explode all of our evidence. So that's the cool um, thing about a potato head. The other kind is it might be uh, a W and a W, two ideas that they ask us about, which is gonna be sort of like the the paired passages. They're gonna ask you something about how in both elementary and secondary, they said, how is something in one passage or someone similar to something in another one? And so because of the multiple hands, you might give two pieces of evidence about how they're similar in the first passage and two pieces about how they're similar in the second passage. So hopefully, by the time we get done, you'll like these different because there's no one way to check the quantity and the quality of an essay. Now, what I want you to keep in mind is that this guy has feet, so does this one. And so when you stand them up, because they have feet, they will stay up. If if they had no feet, then it would fall over. And so the feet are going to be the ending, the conclusion. So even if you have students who can only write one sentence, well, one is better than nothing. And I often wear a shirt that has a flamingo standing on one foot, representing those students who maybe not gonna be able to write a high quality conclusion, but there'll be something there at least where they can restate. Okay. But if there is no ending, it would be like taking off the shoes of Mr. Potato Head, and you would see that it would be sort of like Humpty Dumpty, where it would have a great fall, because you do need, according to the rubric, the conclusion to be present in order to qualify for a two, or effective to qualify for a three from each reader. And again, because it's subjective, one might say uh, a higher score than the other one. So let's take a look at, I'm going to share my screen. And so I want to be able to look at the essay that I sent to you in a previous email, and I'll make sure that you receive it again along with these files that will help us check the quantity. Now, the first thing, oh, let me make sure I show you, because I'm not gonna I can't show you three screens at the same time. I can only show you two. So what I do want to remind you of, just real quickly, that we are going to be using this hand first. And so as you see these stars after after the thumb and each finger, we're going to be checking how many sentences that go with each part. So here I have here a bowl of M&Ms. You could also use Skittles. And the cool thing about Skittles is they have a little S on them, so that you can represent how many sentences does each part of the essay have. And again, this first time, we're only going to be checking the quantity. So what I'll do is when I'm finished, I'll take a picture of it. I'll show it to you on the camera, but also take a picture so you can see how many sentences each part of the essay had. All right. So just a reminder, what we're going to see is the attention getter that I decided to use. And in middle school and high school, where we would either call it a controlling idea statement or a thesis statement. And in elementary, we would call it a central idea statement. Okay. In all cases, you can have the hat, the hook. Okay. And it's going to be the lead or the wow statement, the attention getter, anything that you write first that gets the reader's attention. So I'll read these to you, and then you'll be seeing them inside. So once we heard the topic, again, just very quickly going over explaining and exploding ECR, extended constructed responses. The purpose and the passages were an informative expository purpose of writing. It was a paired set of passages called Rising from the Ashes and the Asheville Flood. The prompt/topic was explain how the experiences of the Verona family throughout Rising from the Ashes are similar to those of the Soriano family in the Asheville Flood. Okay. And so remember that the acronym TARE, you go straight from the topic to the evidence before you try to answer with a thesis statement or a controlling idea statement. So the evidence, this first finger, when you look at it closely, is going to be how this first pointer finger is going to be how both families lost their homes, and it will show the evidence. And so I will be using this part to see how many sentences did I spend explaining the importance of this losing your home is to the idea and the topic that was given to us. The second finger, the middle finger, is going to be evidence about how the family in the Rising from the Ashes article uh, decided to help their community in spite of losing their home. The ring finger is going to be evidence about how the Asheville Flood family decided to help their community. And again, we'll be using green, blue, and or orange monkeys to differentiate between those. Uh, However many sentences that we have in our introduction, we will count those. There won't always be the same amount, and you don't need, just because you see 5 stars here, it doesn't mean that you're trying to get 5 sentences. Because, like I said, I've seen some essays, both elementary and secondary, that will have one piece of evidence and they'll have one sentence explaining it, another piece of evidence, and another sentence explaining it, a third piece of evidence, and possibly a sentence explaining it. And then over here, we're going to have our ending. And the reason I have three is we're going to decide, is it present or is it effective? Is the introduction present or is it effective? All right. So based on the evidence that I found for you guys, here's the hook I decided to use from those 2 pages that I showed you in our handout. Nothing fills an empty heart faster than bringing joy to others in spite of your own pain and trauma that you've gone through in life. Okay. Why did I use this hook? Because there was an emotional connection, pain, trauma, vocabulary, filling your heart, bringing joy. What's the joy that's brought? The fact that people are helping others. Let's take a look and see what thesis I decided to come up with. Topic first, the experiences of the Verona and Paez families were similar, restating the topic, in that even though they both lost their homes, first idea, they helped their communities recover from the damage that was caused by the 2 disasters. Second idea. Okay. And as you see here at the bottom, it does remind us how we can explain in the body who, what, when, where, why, which, how, wow are the types of explanation that you could add between uh, the fingers for the explaining and the exploding part. The toes are the voice part of it, the exploding, how to add spice to the essay, which we'll talk about more with the potato heads. Okay, so let's check it out here. I'm going to come back out. So what I'll be doing is adding for each detail that we have, you'll see for each sentence that I find that ends with a period, an exclamation, or a question mark, I'll be adding one M&M. And one cool thing about an M&M, it does look like a W when you flip it upside down. How close I can get that for you. It looks like a W. When you flip it upside down, who, what, when, where, why, which, how, wow. If you turn it sideways, it looks like an E for evidence, explain, explode, ending, editing, all those things that count towards the grade, all these things that are right here. Okay. Now I'm not going to turn them, I'm just going to place them there so that you can see, but hopefully you will be able to um, see that the essay has quantity from what we read in the essay that I wrote as the what we might call an exemplar. Okay, stop sharing. Sometimes if I don't come back out and go back in, it doesn't share correctly. So I don't want to be wasting a lot of time on reading if you guys can't see it. All right. So there's the essay. All right. I'm going to annotate as we go so I can take notice of certain things. Okay. Again, we have the topic, explain how the experiences of the Verona family throughout rising from the ashes are similar to those of the Soriano Paez family in the Asheville flood. This is going to be the rough draft. Okay. Nothing fills an empty heart faster than bringing joy to others in spite of your own pain and trauma that you've gone through in life, period. So there's a sentence. I'm going to place one M&M on the thumb. The experiences of the Verona and Paez families were similar in that even though they both lost their homes, they helped their communities recover from the flood that was caused by the two disasters. So even though that's two different ideas, because it's just one sentence, I'm going to be placing one M&M for one thesis statement, one controlling idea statement. Okay. Moving to the body. Okay. I did indent, but your students will not lose points if they don't indent or have a certain X amounts of paragraphs. Okay. The first thing that both families had in common was that they had to leave their homes during the flood and fire and flood disasters and ended up completely losing them in the end. So that is my first idea, what we call explaining in the body. So I'm going to place a green M&M on explaining. Then I'm going to come with some evidence. So that will be on the finger. The explaining goes between the fingers. The evidence goes on the fingers. That's how to differentiate. Okay. So the article Rising from the Ashes tells us in paragraph 6, that's the uh, location, specific location, and quotations. About 2 weeks passed before it was finally safe enough for Keeney and her family to return to their home to see what happened. Continuing with the evidence, Keeney was stunned to see their house flattened, their car a tangle of melted metal. Okay, so not only here did they lose their home, they even lost their car, their vehicle that could have been used for traveling from one place to another. Okay, so that's the two sentences of evidence. So I'm placing two yellow M&Ms on that first finger. So let me slide down here so you can see the next little part, because I went ahead and put both families losing their homes inside this same paragraph. Okay. Transitioning idea. There was a comparable result in paragraph 8 of the Asheville flood, location, the passage, where it mentions specific location, quotations. When the flooding outside the neighbor's house finally slowed, Sebastian and Lissandra waded through knee-deep water to see what was left of their home, period. So that's a third piece of evidence. So that's that third on that potato head that I showed you. That's uh, three arms that would be sticking out so far. All right. They found it tilted at an unnatural angle with a giant tree smashed through the front porch. And so what you're going to see, I'm going to stop each time that I get to a sentence. So when you're doing teachable moments of instruction, it's probably important that you go ahead and make a marker. If you're doing it on paper, then maybe draw a little red wall with a colored pencil or a highlighter or a marker, something, so you can keep track of where you stop and talk about things with your students. Okay, so that's a fourth piece of evidence, a sentence about losing their homes. Okay, let's see if there's more. Inside, it looked even worse, period. So 5 sentences of losing homes. And again, this was both passages combined. Okay. It was completely unlivable now. And so that unlivable, you can tell that it doesn't look right. But when you say it unlivable, it sounds right. And so your students would have to go take that word into their online dictionary to check and see is it an accurate spelling or not. And that way they can, you know, find out. But if they remember that they're quoting evidence, all they have to do is go look and see how is it written in the passage. That way, if your left side has the passage or the paragraph that you're looking at, your right side has the quoted evidence, hopefully it would be spelled the same. And so to me, that just doesn't look right. So I don't know if I was just copying what was there or not. All right. So far we have 2 sentences on the thumb for the topic and the idea and the introduction. The the ring finger has um, 5 yellow M&Ms for evidence. So let's see now how we were planning on explaining that. Explaining green. Losing where you have been living for years or perhaps decades of you life. Okay. So what we can do, because of the way that I've designed the structure, your life, I'm going to go ahead and look at my phone and pretend like that's my online. I'm going to check livable so that we can improve the spelling livable. All right. So it's ABLE. So I will be able to correct as we go. And so basically, as we're going along, reading it softly or loudly, we'll be able to change what we called a rough draft into a final copy. Okay. Funny thing was my phone was still on speaker mode, so it was recording everything that I was saying there, which I thought was interesting. Uh, Sometimes you have to be careful on that. Um, let's see. Just double check something here. Make sure my phone is not going to be um, interrupting us. All right, got it. All right, so where was I? I was on the explaining part. Losing where you have been living for years or perhaps decades of your life had to be overwhelming for the families. So I don't see a period there. So again, I can edit and revise as I go if I need to. All right, that was 1 sentence of explaining. So I placed one green M&M in the point in between the pointer and the middle finger. What kind of details were those? A what, a when, a who, and an emotions sentence. At the time, at the time, comma, they probably had no idea what to do or where they would be able to go to start their lives over again, period. So our second green. So basically, what was similar was losing their home, a negative thing, if you see me here on the screen, and explaining how that's negative in my own words uh, for both families. So I've got two sentences. That would be a when, a who, a what, a where, and a what in that sentence. Five different kinds of details coming out of the uh, explanation to give a personal example, a life connection to what we're describing. My family and I have had to move out a few times in the past because of financial difficulties. Okay, that might be considered off topic by some of you, but if you look and see what I put next, but I doubt that could compare to the complete devastation experienced by the Verona and Soriano families, by us families with their homes. So a personal life connection. So it was like a compare and a contrast. So I put a third green M&M to the negative aspects of losing their home and how that was similar for both families. All right, let me scroll down just a little bit more now as we transition to the positive part of it. And what I'm going to do is, if you look at me, so we've got our introduction done, we've got our evidence, we've explained the evidence with three sentences. So now we're going to be talking about um, helping communities in spite of the situation. All right. So let's see how we did that. All right. A more positive experience. Let me get my little A more positive experience that was similar in both families transitioning was that even though the two main families in these stories were languishing in grief vocabulary, that the loss of their homes due to fi fire and flood, comma, they chose to bring hope and joy to their city, period. There's me giving you an explanation first. So I put a blue M&M between after the second piece of evidence, the one about the positive, the middle finger is going to be the positive about helping. So here comes the evidence, and this time I'll be paraphrasing. In paragraph 7 of Rising from the Ashes, the Verona family spends a few months assisting and rebuilding the city in many ways, such as getting rid of all kinds of burned debris that was once valuable possessions of residents in the city. Okay, so that's something that they did. And again, since even though that's paraphrasing, I'm going to place one yellow M&M on the helping the community for the first family. All right. The Paez family helped their city in many ways as well, transitioning to the other family so that the movement from idea to idea is smooth and controlled. Most of paragraph 9, most of paragraph 9 from the Asheville flood, that's the location, the name of the passage, mentions all the ways that they help. Okay, so that's me explaining a little bit more. Some examples were collecting water, food, clothing, and emergency supplies to give out to others who had lost everything they own. And again, that was uh, paraphrasing. So I'm going to place yellow, my second yellow M&M on the middle finger. All right. Now here's explaining that in a little bit greater detail. Having their families demolished were very horrendous acts of nature for the families in these articles. So it was very inspiring and encouraging that both families were dedicated to doing whatever was needed to help rebuild their city. That was a what, an opinion, an opinion, an opinion, a who, and a what. Okay. Having their families demolished. What? It was horrendous act of nature, opinion for the families in there. So it was very inspiring opinion, encouraging opinion that both families who were dedicated to doing whatever was needed. That was the what. So that's how I broke that down. So that was me explaining. So since I've already done some explaining on the yellow side, I'm going to now go over to my orange finger, and you can see it says blue and orange. So you can be adding them in because they're both about positive things that they're doing for their city. Continue on. Imagine the relief and looks on the faces of the families receiving aid, and going to the next page, support after all they've gone through, exclamation. So that was an emotion detail, senses, a who, and a what. That's me telling you in my own words why I think that is such a good thing. So I'm adding another orange M&M after that third evidence finger. Okay. Many of these positive benefits, more explanation coming, would have been possible, would have been possible if the Verona and Paez families had not invested. So I think it was the opposite. So since I already had not here, one way to kind of make it sound better is use a contraction. Many of these positive benefits wouldn't have been possible if the Verona and Paez families had not invested their time in making the future of those around them better, even though their own was in doubt. So that was my next one. Now, I didn't tell you what kind of details, so let's kind of go over that together right now. All right. A positive benefit, that first detail is an opinion. It wouldn't have been possible. That's not true, or it is true. If just somebody's point of view and perspective, the writer, which is me, of course. If the Verona family and Paez families had not invested their time, if they had not, that's a what, if they hadn't done that in making the future of those around them better. Better, again, is an opinion statement, even though their own was in doubt. So saying that somebody's future, if we base future or success or failure on losing a home, then yes, I can understand how that could be true. But again, that's an opinion. So all of those were the kinds of details that were used in that last sentence. So as we transition to the ending, what I want you to pay close attention to is I try never to repeat ideas that I've already written. I try to rephrase, say them in a different way, or to reflect, uh, making personal or real life connections. So I'll be using now red M&Ms for the pinky for the conclusion. Uh, you see here that I have the word heart and the word head. So heart is an emotional connection and the head is a mental connection, opinions and emotions. So let's see uh, what we've got. And the reminder for you, it's just a combination of emotions and opinions to bring closure and TIE, tie all the ideas together, the topic, the idea, the evidence, the explanation, the exploding, and the ending. When unfair opinion and unjust opinion experiences happen to people when they least expect it, comma, when, who, those impacted who can either just throw up their hands, that's showing your emotions. When you throw up your hands, that's a frustration, that's a sign of giving up, or put them to work helping others. And so that's what they chose to do. And that's one sentence. And those are the details you can see here that I wrote down. One of the most delightful emotion experiences in life is to sacrifice your time and energy for others in spite of your own broken hearts and discouragement. So that's me coming out of the essay and making a real world connection to the ideas that we wrote about throughout the entire essay. All right. So now that I've done that, here's what the sentence would be. It's an opinion using senses and imagery, vocabulary, emotions, and emotions. All right. So I will stop sharing so that you can see what would that look like on the hand. So I'll be showing you just my screen. So those are the sentences. So we had two sentences in the introduction. The evidence about losing your home, there were two or three sentences for one, or and two or three sentences of losing your home for the other one, and then me trying to explain how that's a negative thing. And then I talked about evidence from one family and the other family, how uh, they went about helping others, and then why is that a good thing? Two sentences for the first part and three sentences for the second part. And again, you can see here in the body, uh, you want to develop all of your ideas in detail, whether it's your evidence and your explanation and connect them together, transitioning. So there's my yellow evidence D and my green explanation D, my yellow evidence D for the positive thing of helping community, the two explanations D, the last evidence E, third part of the third body paragraph, and how I explained it. And then we had two sentences. So that's the visual. I'm going to make sure that I leave that so that you can see uh, a picture. Um, and again, we can slide all this. It basically because the, the the middle finger and the ring finger were basically the same thing. You could have it look like this, where here's my evidence from both passages about losing their homes, how I would explain all of that, how that's a negative thing, and here's my evidence about both families helping community and how I would explain all of that, and then my ending. So whether you use blue and orange or just blue, it doesn't matter as long as you're making sure that you're tying everything together in the way that you write it. So on the next part, I'll be reading it over and we'll be checking the what kind of details. We'll be checking the quantity of the details, but more focused on the quality. We'll be using the the poker chips, but I'll be first using the paper potato head where I can just start plugging in the numbers for you so we can see how how um, how the quality of the essay connects to the quality of the details that are inside each sentence. So I'll be switching. So I'm going to try to share the screen, see if I can do this correctly. I'm going to do it side by side, and I'm hoping, let me do this right now. All right. So we are going to be seeing, not this one. This is uh, this is what it looks like in its blank format in a program I used called Corel. So the one that I'm going to use is the PDF version of it, which is this one here. Make sure I get to the right one for you. There it is. Okay. So as you can see here, I have the potato head and all the things that I mentioned. We're going to be looking at the quality of the details using thoughts, opinions, emotions. And in case, it's a little bit hard, like I said, to show two screens at once. So in case you can't see clearly, I'll be telling you where I'll be making tally marks in the changes of the essay. Um, and if you look over here at me, I went ahead and printed the essay out. So I will be reading from there so that you can see where I'm getting the essay from. So if you want to print out a copy of the essay, you'll be able to see how I'm uh, counting the quantity and the quality of the details. So this is where you might want to take a break and uh, stretch or get a snack or a bite to eat. So I'll be making sure that I share. I saw that it was telling me that my screen was paused. So let me make sure, try it again here. Okay, now it says I'm sharing the screen. Okay, side by side. There it goes. All right. So you you can see here that I've got me on one side. I'll be reading from the essay, and I have the potato head on the other side, the paper version, so that you can basically just be plugging in the quantity of the details. So as you see here, you can see how many times that I shared my thoughts, my opinions, my emotions, quotes, truism, words of wisdom. You can see how many sentences were spent. And so I already have that. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and plug those in before we get started. On the first one, we had 5 sentences of evidence and 3 sentences of explaining on the negative part about a family losing their home. yellow, green. On the blue, we had um, one sentence of evidence with two sentences of explaining, total of three. On the orange, one sentence of evidence with three sentences of explaining, total of four. So if you decide to join the positivity of the family, both families helping their community, four plus there would be seven total sentences of evidence and explaining on that. If we can call it the second body paragraph. Okay, I can already tell you that um, because I wrote the essay, I feel I'm gonna feel like my introduction was effective because not only do I have a hook, I have great word choices. I'm gonna look down here. Uh, my conclusion was also effective, and I have those there as a reminder. And all we'll do now is we'll be plugging in each time. So we already have the quantity. You can see there of the sentences in the body. So let's go ahead and I'll pause for a little bit so that we can take our stretch break, our water break. All right, so here we go. On one side, you see that we have the essay, and on the other, you see that we have the Mr. Potato Head. You know, I made these because I was like, I would love for every single teacher and student to have a potato head, but that's just not possible. And the cool thing about these that you'll notice here is that uh, you can see that even though many of you can't print things in color, I've gone ahead and written the words white for thoughts, gold for vocabulary, black for figurative language, blue for opinions, red for emotions, and green for quotes, truisms, and words of wisdom. So right now you see them all set to zero. I still have the numbers for how many total sentences that we had for the different uh, parts of the evidence that we explained. Uh, you see the introduction is here. Uh, and all I'm going to check now is the quantity, sorry, excuse me, the quality of the details using these little poker chips. And um, if there happens to be something with senses, if this was a excuse me, a paper potato head, instead of using these numbers, what you would do, you would just place little tally marks next to each uh, little token or poker chip or little circle and what it represented. Because I think sometimes your students need to know not just what score they got, but how they got the score and how they see that you noticed the quality of their essay. So here we go. Um, as we read, at the end, since I know that the size is smaller than maybe what you can read easily, I'll make sure that I enlarge the essay. Well, you've already seen the essay, so I'll make sure I enlarge the potato head so you can see each part. clearly in terms of the total number. And I'll even make a screenshot of that so that I can send it to you as part of the email. All right, so here we go. Nothing fills an empty heart faster than bringing joy to others in spite of your own pain and trauma that you've gone through in life. So, an empty heart, bringing joy, pain, and trauma. That's four emotion details there that I can add. And if we end up going beyond what we actually have on the list, then of course, uh, you'll just know that that's really good quality. All right. The experiences of the Paez family were, even though they both lost their homes, they helped their community recover, causing the two disasters. And so, just an example of something that you could do, you could say horrible or tragic disasters on that on the essay there, and that would allow an extra opinion. So you can look for little places where you can plug in uh, opinions in front of nouns, if that makes sense. The body. The first thing that both families had in common. Let me just make sure I don't have any. Uh, a disaster could be a vocabulary. I want to make sure I don't leave out those because I know there's trauma, even though that's emotion. Because I chose high vocabulary, I kind of get credit for a great emotion word and uh, the fact that it's higher vocabulary. The first thing that both families had in common was that they had to leave their homes during the fire and flood disasters and ended up completely losing them in the end. The article's Rising from the Ashes tells us in paragraph 5. Uh, we can't, I don't give credit for evidence vocabulary because all they're doing is transcribing. There was a comparable result, so that transition there is great vocabulary. So I'm going to make sure that I don't lose my spot with my pencil or my pen here. Um, Add one more, a comparable, because you could have just said similar there. Result, as it mentions, excuse me, and then the evidence. I'll skip past that because again, we don't give credit for using high vocabulary or opinions when you're quoting evidence because that's not coming from the student. All right, so here we are on the next portion. Losing where you have been living for years or perhaps decades of your life had to be an overwhelming emotionally. Okay, so overwhelming is an emotion, but it's if you're saying it's overwhelming, that's an opinion. So I'm gonna do overwhelming and uh, making an emotional connection, I'll give a point for that too as well. As at the time, they probably had no idea what to do or where they would be able to go. And so that would be sort of like sharing my thoughts. They probably an idea. They had no idea where they're going to go, one, and or what they were going to do, two. My family and I had to move a few times in the past because of financial difficulties. So probably vocabulary on financial and difficulties. So that'll move vocabulary to 5 gold coins. I doubt that could compare to the complete devastation. Uh, Great word choice there. Experienced by the Verono. So I saw that I made a mistake there. So in the final copy, we would want to come back and change uh, Verono to Varona. I believe that's, yeah, so because when you look up here, you can see it says Verona, but I doubt that could compare to the complete devastation experienced by the Verona and Sariano Baez families with their homes. A more, sorry, trying to kill two birds with one stone here. A more positive experience that was similar in both families. So positive is an opinion. So, and sometimes like some of you might be catching some things that I don't. Um, so like figurative language sometimes gets easily overlooked if you're not careful. They were languishing in grief, so vocabulary and emotion. Remember, it said effective word choices, precise word choices. When they're used, then that adds. So even though we have a certain amount of development, um, that fourth bullet is adding to the quality because of these word choices that we're using. Due to the fire and flood, they chose to bring hope and peace. Okay. Um, Hope and peace are emotional states. Like I feel hope and I feel peace. I would say that those are probably um, well, I'm gonna give one for opinion that, based on my point of view, that they would have hope of something good that would happen and peace. I'll I'll call that an emotion. Finish the paragraph. In paragraph 7, talk about paraphrasing here. Um, One's valuable possessions. That's valuable is an opinion, possession is vocabulary. Valuable opinion and possession vocabulary. And just in case you were wondering, I think that as you see, you can see which one it's on. So when you look at the actual thing, so you just click the next one. Of the residents of the city. Residents is something that um, was vocabulary coming from my head. So again, I would get extra credit for that. The Paez family helped their city and many as well. Mentions all the ways they helped. Some examples we're collecting, so this is all evidence. And so we're going to uh, transition to the explaining of the specific details about helping. Having their homes demolished. Can't remember if I don't think I used that word before. So vocabulary for demolished. Were very horrendous acts of nature. Horrendous is an opinion. So that moves to number 5. An act of nature. That's a great word choice there. So we're at 11 on that. in these articles. It was very inspiring and encouraging. Those are both, um, I'll call inspiring an opinion and encouraging an emotion, even though sometimes they're interchangeable, the way that they're written. We'll add one emotion and one opinion. So as you can see, when I put these actual poker chips in the opening of the real Mr. Potato Head, they're going to make some noise. So think of the saying, let your voice be heard. You're actually going to hear a voice because of the poker chips banging around inside the plastic potato head. Uh, both families were dedicated to doing whatever was needed to rebuild their cities. So dedication is a great word choice. Imagine the relief. So imagine is kind of like allowing us to get into uh, a discussion about thoughts. So trying to make sure I fold this so you guys can see the bottom portion of this so it doesn't get stuck out of the camera. Imagine the relief. So that would be a little bit about thoughts. So it was on two, so we're going to move to three. And looks on the faces, so that would be senses. So you would plug in an I there, not I for topic and idea, but I for letting me see something. Receiving aid and second page support after they had gone through many of the positive benefits would have been so positive. The word benefit is vocabulary. So 12 goes to 13. Would not have been possible, right? We fixed that if the Verona family and Verona Pius families had not invested their time. So investing is a great vocabulary word too. So that's now you can see why I think I have up to 25 there. Making the future of those around them better, even though their own was in doubt. Okay. So those are um, better and in doubt. When you say something's better than something else, you're stating an opinion. And when something is in doubt, you're also stating your point of view and perspective. So that's two opinions there. Okay. And again, you wouldn't sit there doing this for everybody, but you would want to do like a cross section, maybe like uh, on a couple of high students each time that you do an essay, you would probably want them to be able to see um, what exactly are you considering, quality writing? Because a lot of times students just do what I call dragnet, nothing but the facts, and so it's just monotonous. It's a lot of blah versus bling, a lot of boring and mundane versus exciting, unique, creative, insightful. Okay. All right, one more sentence and then we're done. One of the most delightful opinion experiences is to sacrifice your time. So delightful is an opinion. And energy for others in spite of your own broken hearts and discouragement. So we close with two emotion words. So 8 goes to 10. And there you have it. So let me stop sharing and then I'll go back to me so that you can see how do I transfer all of this to um, so I'm gonna share the screen with you So you can see me and my potato head and the paper potato head at the same time. So let's see if that works for us. Yes, I had to see them side by side. All right, so what do we have here? We have three thoughts. So I have white chips, and what I did was I purchased a container of poker chips and it's like a silver case that you can buy at Walmart. And they come in white, blue, black, green, and red. So the only ones that I have to buy are the ones from Dollar Tree. Basically, they come in gold and they're seasonal, but you can always find them in the toy department. So we have three thoughts. So I'm gonna have three white poker chips that I placed back here. Eight, was it nine? Nine opinions. So I'm gonna get nine blue chips. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, and nine. I just got lucky that I have the exact amount. 10 emotions. So 10 red chips. I don't think I'm going to get lucky again and have the exact amount, but let's see how close I get. One, two, red, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, and 10. Okay. So this is getting pretty full in here. So let's see what we have left. Didn't use any truisms or, I mean, there are some there. Um, the way you opened and closed could have been, um, but the last one is 14 vocabulary words. And so just so you can see, there's two different kinds that I have here. Um, One, it basically looks like a real coin. One, I buy them uh, for around St. Patrick's Day. They're like little good luck gold coins. So I need to be able to see if I can squeeze 14 in here. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And then I'm going to use what sometimes people, my students used to call the bottom, or his or her bottom, to close up the potato head. And then I'll shake it so that you can see that it does in fact make some noise. There we go. So let your voice be heard. That's basically how I would do that. So I know that it was kind of time consuming to see all of that, but I think at least a couple of times, uh, or at least once, maybe. I'm trying to think, maybe on your highest student, so that because you just don't have time to do this with everybody. Perhaps on your highest student, go ahead and each time you write an essay or sign one, have go through that process of letting them see a paper or um, a real potato head uh, that you have. And what what you can sometimes do, most essays are not going to have any of those or very few of them. So what I suggest that you do is you have everybody with a copy of the paper potato head. And even like I said, if it's printed in black and white, the colors of each chip are there. And so we can be asking questions or plugging in figurative expressions using that reading and writing guide that I sent you, or uh, there's some pages with just a whole page of, for example, just similes or just metaphors, just onomatopoeias. You can figure out how to plug in figurative language appropriately. So I hope that that is helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching, and um, uh, I appreciate all of you. Uh, I will send a uh, PDF of the completed, or you know what, I'll probably send a screen, well, probably a PDF and a screenshot, because the PDF can be changed and the screenshot will just be kind of frozen. Like if I send it as a JPEG file, you'll be able to keep a copy of that so you can see what exactly did this essay look like in terms of its overall voice. So there you go. Thank you so much, and God bless.